Hi, everyone. Welcome to a chilly action movie show. My name is Carlos, and with me, as always, is the marginally less chilly Manyninjas.
Hello, everyone. How's it going? One of these days, I really expect a response. Not sure when, but one of these days.
There's always hope. So, Manyninjas, can you introduce the people? What movie are we talking about?
All right, today's movie of the day: Mission Impossible, first of the series, starring a man who may or may not be known for jumping on couches and all sorts of other tomfoolery.
Scientology for the win. Anyway, so, we wanted to cover this for a couple of reasons. This is like our first delve into like the action spy genre. Most of the time when I think of that, I think of like James Bond movies. But this was a very slick movie at the time it came out, which is actually kind of fun. It is a silly movie, but it is a fun, silly movie. Plus, there's a lot of little references that I think we'll talk about a little bit when we get into it. The other big thing about it is that really it spawned a franchise and kind of reinvented Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise had been a movie star already by this point for a while, but this was the first big move for him in like the mid 90s, 95, 96, when he actually got a little bit of credibility as an action star as opposed to just being like a leading man in a bunch of other kinds of movies. And it ended up spawning several sequels, including a Mission Impossible 5 this upcoming year in 2015. So you can't argue with some success there.
It's nice to say, clearly the series has had legs over the years, and this was a good starting point. Jumping into the non-spoiler review, in terms of the overall plot, it seems to start out relatively simple enough, to be honest there, but it does get noticeably more interesting as the thing goes on, especially with how the story gets a little deeper, and generally how they kind of play off how it's kind of hard to say these things without actually saying these things. You have to understand, folks. Basically, how Tom Cruise's character comes to the realization of exactly what the plot that he's gotten himself involved in up to that point, involving the group, the agency he's working with, and how everything has kind of been turned on its head. And generally, it's a pretty nice, good whodunit. Nice cinematography, very slick in terms of its actual presentation. The actors do a rather good job at everything there. Tom Cruise pretty much does his role very well. All the supporting actors are generally good fits for everything. I can't think of anyone that was kind of poorly cast. So overall, liked it.
Indeed. Yeah, no, it was a good solid action movie. Well, in terms of non-spoiler, I'll stop it right there because I really want to get into it. The ninjas, give them the countdown.
All right, a 5, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. Let us proceed, ladies and gentlemen.
Soon we will actually have we'll have to come up with a graphic or something. Maybe CGI the ninja on a mountaintop or something as he counts. But in the meantime, there's a lot of little things that I want to talk about this movie, but the main thing is betrayal, glorious betrayal. But no, before that, before we get to glorious betrayal, and we are in the spoiler part. So if you have not already watched the movie and you'd like to, I highly recommend you do so. And then you can certainly come back and then we'll talk about some stuff. Men and Ninjas, how gloriously 90s is this movie in terms of technology and the perception of technology, which is one of my favorite little things about these movies.
Okay, let's see. Spy cameras hidden in glasses, exploding gum. Uh, Small trinkets are kind of electronics that could be stuck into payphones in order to try to secure the line.
Payphones being a key here in that sentence.
Payphones, yes, it's payphones themselves. There are cell phones, but
Cell phones did exist, but they're really very still kind of almost primitive. Can I name off a couple of items and then you can certainly comment about any of them that strike you?
clunky laptops. That's another thing.
Yep. Now, let me run through a couple of items because I did jot a few down. Because as soon as we got into the part where we screamed 90s, I enjoyed it very much. When you look at the browser, when you look at the internet in this movie, the way the internet is represented, it's a very mid 90s take on it because the internet was really getting going in kind of its current format. So when you look at a web browser, everything looked like Netscape because Internet Explorer existed, but not very. It doesn't really look like what it looks like today. Everything kind of looked pretty basic. And then whenever they reference anything related to the internet, everything was text commands. Like when Tom Cruise wanted to send an email, he had to send an email, and instead of using a regular email address, it was like, there was a biblical reference that he used to
Usenet
contact
stuff.
to get through somebody. But it wasn't sending a normal email. It was like Job at, 314, .com. It wasn't really a real email address, and everything basically wasn't real in terms of programs. Everything was like, all right, it's a movie. We're going to make it look sort of like a program so that when he clicks on things, things happen, but it looks different from what you'd actually expect. At the same token, the other things that really were great, the clunky laptops, clunky computers, diskettes. You've got, your diskettes. No optical discs necessarily, although the diskettes did have like a little CD inside to get the extra capacities, presumably. And then high capacity discs were in the hundreds of megabytes. That's pretty good.
We like to call them zip drives, or zip disks.
Well, they look like zip disks, but zip disks were like these gray things, as opposed to these things that are looking kind of see-through and kind of slick. It really, and then really when you went to go to the internet, to go to Usenet, think about the last time you used Usenet. For those of you who might be under the age of the low to mid-20s, you may not even have a clue what Usenet is necessarily. That tells you how incredibly mid-90s this movie was. And then realistically, when you get into scenes, you didn't really elaborate on it, but when you get into scenes when somebody's supposed to hack into something, everything is just this beautiful interface where you just type exactly what you want, like jam signal, enter.
Now that's just good programming behind the hacking programming. It was like, okay, this is an understood command. This is what you're supposed to do. It's basically to reduce the user manual required.
How wonderful that Ving Rhames would have taken the trouble and taken the time to come up with a beautiful interface that all he has to do is type in send jam signal.
Well, it's either that or we get the other 90s equivalent where I'm just going to mash on every button on the keyboard repeatedly, non-stop for a minute, and that'll explain what's going on there. It's going to be one or the other. We took the less noisy of the two.
Indeed. I want to make a credit. So in terms of the technology, it was very 90s, which is actually kind of fun. If you remember the mid-90s, it's kind of a fun to look back on it and then just think about kind of how far we've come. So something like this series, you can kind of follow along and kind of see how things change. Because the second movie comes out right at 2000. Because you're starting to make that turnover into the 21st century. And then as the series continues, we're into, the next movie is going to be in 2015. So by the time that movie comes out, you're going to have nearly 20 years on this first movie. That's a quantum leap. At this point, Tom Cruise is like in his mid-30s. So he's kind of in his prime in terms of doing this and at almost the perfect time for himself. So it's kind of interesting to see then how this character goes from one end to the other. But it all starts off here, and you've got Jon Voight in this movie, who's fantastic. A pretty good cast of characters, and a really short but interesting appearance from Emilio Estevez, who I completely forgot was in this movie.
I'm drawing a blank here.
On Emilio Estevez?
No, where he appeared in the movie.
Sure. Tell you what. You talk about a few things that you're thinking about, and I'm going to help jog your memory. You go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Generally speaking, the overall theme of the movie, betrayal. The question is, who isn't betraying someone or else in the general film? Because, okay, generally, since we are in the spoiler part, okay, the dead thing is the mentor figure, who was basically the head of the group. Yeah, he was Job all along. Okay, that's actually a really nice reveal. And it's pretty much once it's revealed that he's alive, that's when Tom Cruise's character, in the conversation with him, starts to piece things together. But it's not just kind of played in actual terms of wordage, really, as much as they kind of make... Carlson's got the screen there.
Allow me to assist my associate. Please continue, but in the meantime, I'm going to educate some folks.
Yeah, but in general, you have him appear later on, and as they're having the conversation back and forth, while he's trying to pin the blame on the guy who's in charge of pretty much the NOC in the first place, or the CIA there, Tom Cruise's character is playing visuals in his mind, trying to figure out exactly how the betrayal could have actually gone and taken place, realizing that his mentor was the one who really set them up all along. So, okay, all the dramatic video angles, everyone was wearing sets of glasses that had cameras in them. Well, actually, this hand that you could see, the gloved hand shooting, he could have been turning it on himself and firing the gun, or a fake set of bullets on himself, basically setting up his own death scene, which he falls off bridge. No one checks for him later. Coincidence? I think not. And then working out the scenarios based on everything else that had been going up to the boy. Okay, this person's probably in it. This is how this person could have been killed in general. Or it could have been this person. We don't know the actual answer. Insinuating the guy's wife. Which we turned out she is connected, but we don't exactly know how or who killed the person who was in the car with the car bomb. But he's kind of just working it out in his head, and we're seeing this visually, and that was a particularly nice set of scenes, I find.
I think it was okay. I actually think it was a little too much. Not just because it was kind of silly. It's like, I don't really need to see what's in Tom Cruise's mind. I think it was kind of to compensate that I don't think Tom Cruise could necessarily facially show that he was recognizing things, and at the same time he has like the same goofy look on his face, partially deer in the headlights and occasionally just smiling like an idiot, and at random times it seems, because he goes from being incredibly paranoid and downright psychotic as his team gets executed. And when I showed the scene with Emilio Estevez and Tom Cruise a minute ago, Emilio Estevez was actually the hacker of the original team that was composed of John Voight as, the mastermind person. His wife is one of the agents. This other woman is one of the agents. Tom Cruise is like the point man and the whole thing. And then Emilio Estevez is the hacker. So honestly, I completely forgot he was in this movie. I kept thinking, maybe Emilio Estevez can go off and coach a kid's hockey team. It could have happened at any time in that moment. But I thought it was kind of cool that he was in this movie, and I thought he was pretty good for what he was doing in the relatively brief time he got on scene. So I'm not really spoiling anything there for you guys. He doesn't last that long. He's part of the first group that gets taken out. But it sets the stage for everything else that follows. The scene you're talking about where he's kind of going through everything in his head, and you can actually see the scenarios in his mind. So you have one scenario where one person's responsible for one thing, and then another scenario where another person's responsible for one thing. Stylistically, it was interesting, but it almost felt like, okay, now it's a bit of lazy storytelling. It's like, yes, he is coming to the realization, but it's like, but you just showed it, so it's like there's no surprise. So that later on, when John Voight acts surprised, you just feel like, well, you were lying to him, he was lying to you. You're an idiot for not realizing that he would figure it out, and he's an idiot for uncovering it in this way.
Generally, you have to give a little bit of a kind of room for error here, just because generally, otherwise, how long are you going to explain or have Tom Cruise visualize or act his way to realizing all these things? I imagine in the original written story, this is handled a lot better, but this is really for time constraints. Let's be honest, that's kind of what was going on there. They just wanted to condense everything into the one scene so they could proceed with the rest of the story from there. Which, in that case, I can understand why they did it, and I can actually appreciate it for that reason. As otherwise, I imagine it would be really ham-fisted to try to have Tom Cruise act his way to explain everything.
Indeed. Now, for the most part, the majority of the movie is like a cat and mouse game as Tom Cruise tries to figure out who the traitor is, because his own agency is now after him. He's been disavowed. Because what you may or may not know, depending on how familiar you are with it, Mission Impossible was based upon a TV show of the same name. And there's certain gimmicks in the show that they mention. One of them is having the mission relayed to you with a cassette tape or something, or a videotape, that explains the whole mission, and then it says, this mission, should you choose to accept it. If you get captured or whatever, we will disavow any knowledge of you, and it's the whole shtick from the TV show. And then, of course, this message will self-destruct in 5 seconds. And then whatever it is, the tape or whatever gets, blows up or smokes. And, you can see the smoke come out of the tape machine. And that's one of the conventions of the show.
Yeah, generally speaking, this message will self-destruct. Whatever it is, doesn't matter the format, it's going to blow up or burst into flames. It's just something that's going to leave no evidence. So generally, okay, we're having fun there. Everything's there, and generally this is just, in the same lieu of the TV show, kind of a mission in general. Only the mission goes horribly wrong. Very early on in the film, and then we're left to figure out, okay, what happened here? And once they kind of figure out what happened, Then they start kind of doing various things in order to basically try to set things right. Or in this case, of Tom Cruise's character, to basically prove his own innocence while stopping the overall crime that was trying to take place in the first place.
Indeed. One thing I did like that was a style thing as well. For the opening title sequence, it was actually kind of cool because if you watch the opening title sequence, they go into this set of like cuts, back and forth between the Mission Impossible thing with like a rope burning as it's going towards its explosion, and then also you've got interspersed all these scenes that are kind of foreshadowing what's about to happen in the movie and the actual mission. They did this, because this is the first movie, we're kind of introducing the concept. Because Mission Impossible is not a new TV show. It was around years before this movie even came out. So it's kind of like a movie remake of it, a relaunch of the series with a very different set of characters in a kind of a different world, modernized a little bit. Because in mid-90s, this looked fairly modern. I have a little fun with the technology part of it now, but that's only because we're almost 20 years on. So we've had enough time where things have changed a lot. If you had reshot this again, you would have to very much change a lot of little pieces that kind of worked for the first one. So in terms of that, it makes it interesting. The style that they shot it in was kind of cool. The action sequences were good. I don't know if it's funny. I feel like the action sequences were very, very. There actually were very few. There were some, but most of them were like Tom Cruise's character evading things. It wasn't so much Tom Cruise's character going after things, because a lot of it was just planning and explaining and things that are lead up to kind of the big, confrontation. And then it kicks into high gear right at the end.
That's actually a fair assessment, because, of course, there's the initial botched operation. There's enough going on there, although this is not necessarily all of it is an action scene. There's enough going on there. I will call that or consider that as part of that. The escape from his own agency. Let's say.
Even that was really only two things.
The meeting with Max. There was enough going on there. I'll toss that in there to be generous. Technically, not an action scene in the style of any kind of real fight going on, but I'd have to be really generous to say the actual theft of the NOC list.
Yeah, but you know what? That one I forgive a little bit because it's not so much an action thing. They were good with the tension. They came out. I did enjoy because it gave you an excuse to have one of the kind of classic scenes in the Mission Impossible. I'll try to see if I can pull up a visual of it. But in the meantime, can you kind of describe what happens in collecting that list once all the planning has happened and it's actually being executed?
All right. Once they basically decide, okay, here's the plan. Now here's how we're going to go get in. First, they fake some fire alarms. Mostly the fire alarms themselves are set up through the hacking efforts of... what was the character's actual name? I know they described the nickname as Phineas Freak off the top of my head.
You're talking about the one played by Ving Rhames?
Yes.
I will find out for you.
Yeah. So basically, you have the first hacking effort in order to set fire alarms that put most of the team in position.
Luther Stickel.
Yeah, you have Luther Stickel doing the hacking in order to help the team get in the initial position. He's not actually physically in the building. He's outside as part of the pretty much taking care of the fire engine where the hacking is taking place. So, all right, then you have the rest of the team. Part of the team sneaks in and stays at least part of the time in the firefighters' costumes. You have one of the other teams sneak in and then dress up in something that's more of office attire in order to kind of blend in with the rest of the environment for where she's headed. So, okay, put something in the drink of the person who would actually have access to go in and out of the locked room they need to break into. Something to keep them out of commission or keep them out of the room for long enough to have they pull everything off. The team that has now taken out one of the guards and went to an area that has access to a vent have climbed up the vent and gone to above the locked secure room, disabled the laser gun or the kind of a laser trap.
It's just a laser. It's a laser trigger. Basically, if the laser gets touched, it sets off the alarm. I'll kind of summarize this part here. Yeah. All it is that, and I'll show you guys the image just so you can see what happens. It's supposed to be like a super safe room. It's temperature regulated. It's got security, security lights and everything that will trigger if somebody's there. If there's an increase in weight when there's nobody supposed to be in there, like that's why Tom Cruise is suspended here in a harness, so he can't touch the ground or else the alarm goes off. Temperature can't rise. That's what the little thing connected to. I don't know. Can you see my cursor?
One second.
Here.
Let me get back to there. Yeah, I can see the cursor.
Okay, so I'm actually just pointing at it here. This thing right here actually helps regulate the temperature. So that helps keep the temperature from rising above, because presumably if it rises 1 degree, that sets off the alarm. If there's noise above a whisper, that sets off the alarm. Presumably because this isn't Langley, this is supposed to be in the CIA super secure. It's what they're all after here is the NOC list. It's supposed to be a list of operatives in deep cover all over the world, everywhere. The list is supposed to be broken up into 2 parts. One part of the list is useless without the other, because one is code names, the other one associates the code names to their actual identities and information about them. With one piece, you've got nothing. With both pieces, you have a valuable piece of information that people would pay good money for. So that's what this comes down to, a lot of money. So, as part of the ruse, Tom Cruise has to get closer in order to get to the person he wants, the traitor, as it turns out. Well, in order to do that, he's got to get this list, and in order to get this list, he actually does have to steal it. So he compiles a team of disavowed people, and then from here, there will be more betrayal. So I'll bring this back to you. And it brings, I will make one point about that scene that I was showing. The way it's shot is actually really great, because in reality, it's just a big white room with a lot of lights, with one computer terminal in the middle of it that's the focus of everything. And it sets up the tension because he comes close several times to triggering the alarm. He almost gets the temperature, up as the pressure starts building because he almost falls. The harness takes him to within a couple of inches of the floor. The pressure of it, he's starting to build up sweat. So almost a drop of sweat falls. The drop of sweat hitting the floor would immediately set off the trigger. Noise happens, and the noise almost sets off that trigger. And this whole time, the person who's supposed to be in this room has been, through fortune and chance, he's been out of the room a while because they set him up with, a laxative, basically to keep him sick long enough. So while he's in the bathroom, they're trying to do all this and trying to steal the list. In the end, even with all these efforts, they do figure out that they had stolen the list, and that leads into another little cat and mouse game as he's trying to evade the CIA guys that are trying to get him, at the same time trying to find the person that is behind everything.
Yes, and the reason they found out is because Jean Reno's character drops a bloody knife in the room.
Correct.
It doesn't hit the ground or doesn't anything else to know to set off alarm, since the alarm just turned off before that. But the knife is lodged into the desk, so there's no denying that there was someone in there. And of course, there is a keylogger on the actual device itself, which reveals exactly what had been going on.
Right. Now, basically, that's really it, because that's the majority of it. The most of the movie is setting up to a few specific set pieces. This one here actually was its own thing. It was a setup to this theft, which then leads into the last component. So, reality-wise, how about we go into the last sequence? Because the last one was the real action sequence of the movie. It's multiple parts. But do you want to describe a little bit about what happens in the final sequence?
All right. Pretty much the build-up to the last sequence is originally basically everyone that's really important is on this train right now. You have Tom Cruise's character, Ethan Hunt, who's pretty much made contact over the phone with the mysterious Max, who is also on here in order to collect the NOC list, along with the associate. Luther's there in order to remotely keep an eye on everything and also to jam the signal so they can't transmit the list out. They don't actually want the list.
Using the incredibly intricate algorithm of send jamming signal.
Yes. Using that over definitely an old-fashioned cell phone. You have everyone that's involved in the agency trying to capture Ethan Hunt at that point. We get the reveal overall that, yes, the wife of the traitor, or at this point we recognize him as a traitor, was in fact in on it well enough. So, okay, that reveals, yeah, you've had a mole in your own presence this whole time.
It was John Voight all along!
Basically. So, okay, we have that there. So it's like, okay, you're outnumbered, but oh, in case you're thinking that you've completely got away with it, oh, I happen to have something that we forgot about that was only around since the beginning of the film. Yeah, the glasses that everyone kind of forgot about. Yeah, no, these glasses with the lenses with the video still work. And by the way, the agency guys can see you. So I just proved you've been behind everything all along. I proved my innocence. But now you can't get away with the money. You're trying to climb out the top of the train in order to go with treacherous Janet Reno, who's quite frankly apparently a really good pilot.
Did you say Janet Reno?
I don't know what the hell I said. What is his name again?
His real name or his movie name?
I don't remember either one right now. I'm trying to.
He's Jean Reno.
Why did I say Janet Reno? I was looking at something else that said Janet. That might explain.
Or you can go with Franz Krieger.
Okay, you have Krieger Reno. We're gonna go with whatever at this point. You have Reno, who's basically been an accomplice this whole time, which makes enough sense considering who got him involved in the first place. The wife who happened to be in on it as well. So we have three people in the conspiracy in immediate distance. And basically a fight takes place on top of the train, into the train tunnel, with the helicopter still pursuing in the train tunnel. And finally, oh, we have another stick of explosive gum as everyone's on the helicopter. Stick it on there. The helicopter explodes. The bad guy explodes. And the train stops and everything stops. But just before one of the helicopter blades would have honestly sliced the guy's throat open. Hooray.
Yes, it was very, very dramatic. It was a very dramatic scene. It worked. It actually worked really well. And to be honest, considering he's an older guy by this point already, Jon Voight was actually very good in this as being kind of viable as, you know, at the end of the day, he's trying to get away with everything. The key with the glasses was that Jon Voight had worked carefully to basically fake his own death, to get away with the money, to fake his own death, but as soon as he's exposed with those glasses, now everybody knows he's alive. So it defeats the whole point. One thing he did leave out is that at the end of it, his wife basically, you know, is trying to talk him. He's trying to talk him into just leaving. Basically, she's trying to talk him into. I don't know if she was trying to stop him from shooting Tom Cruise or basically telling him to just shoot Tom Cruise.
No, pretty much trying to stop him from killing anyone else involved. Basically, just take the money and run.
Yeah.
But after the reveal, it's like, no, I might as well just kill everyone involved.
Yeah, at that point, he's just like, kill everyone. However, one nitpick I will make about this. He has the gun. He shoots his wife. He has every opportunity to shoot Tom Cruise and completely skips the opportunity. He basically hits him, but he doesn't shoot him. That's just a little sloppy.
Yeah.
That's just a little point blank. He had the opportunity to just kill the guy right on the spot.
Realistically, since he's already been proven to be alive at that point, there is no reason to keep Ethan Hunt or Tom Cruise's character alive at that point. Since he can't use him as the fall guy anymore because he's been proven that I've actually still been here the whole time. So
to be blunt, I've got very few criticisms of this movie, but Jon Voight should have shot Tom Cruise. So that's actually the movie. That's really all it is. There's little things, you know, here and there, but for the most part, fun movie. The time went by very quickly on it. It was it was very enjoyable. Is there anything that we left out that struck you?
No, I'd say I'm good. I think I've spoken about everything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where like we're trying not to drone on too much, but it made it easy because there's a lot of good things to say. There are a handful of nitpicks. Certain kind of memorable scenes. It is a great movie to watch. I would highly recommend it, and that's all really I would say about it. It is worth the money if you can get it. It's inexpensive now. If you can get it in the set as part of all the other Mission Impossible movies, they're all pretty much a fun watch to varying degrees, but the first one's real good. And I would recommend or rent it or borrow it or whatever the case is. Just watch the movie. It's a good thing.
Yeah. Honestly, easy sell. I can easily recommend this movie. Nice, fun movie. Although the action scenes, as we are kind of going on along to, even at the end of the day, I can only count maybe being really generous. You can still count them on one hand, but they're well executed there. Like a lot of good suspense and tension in there. A little nitpick to be found here and there, but generally, good film, easy to recommend, can easily recommend to pick it up, rent, watch on Netflix if available, so on and so forth.
Indeed. We did it pretty good. Not bad at all. So, real quick, some items. Thanks very much for everyone who's been watching. I have noticed that the amount of subscribers have slowly been going up, so we appreciate that. We've already discussed it, and if we do get to like 200 or 250 subscribers, Many Ninjas will do that 12-hour marathon of non-stop Steven Seagal movies, where that's all he's going to talk about, including the vampire movie.
I still have no idea about this vampire movie you're talking about. Wait, no, we did talk about it.
I was going to say, you have no idea what. I told you it was there, and I told you what it was.
Yeah, I want to see that one, at least that one, just to see what the hell it is from my own eyes. But the marathon you're talking about? No. Just no. Just say no to Steven Seagal ad nauseum.
So it'll be 12 non-stop hours. Just Many Ninjas talking about Steven Seagal movies, Steven Seagal TV shows that are turned into movies.
I would hope that wouldn't exist.
It does.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. I figured
It's
that
on
was
Netflix.
Yeah, that's sad. No. Yeah, in general, kind of in terms of current projects. Let's see. Since I've actually been doing a little bit of messing around with both equipment and general office space around here, I've been able to upgrade a number of things in my office, so I should be able to do. I'll be doing more recordings, but based off things off actual system stuff from here on out. Basically, when it's ever possible. I've said basically too many times in the sentences. But yeah, I'll be able to do a lot more recording these days now that I have the setup that I was kind of trying to aim for this whole time. So that's beauty. There are one or two other things that I want to hopefully get a hold of, and probably not before the year ends, but very early in the next year. Some civic theme stuff with some titles that I happen to have sitting around. And basically, at Manyninjas on Twitter. I am Manyninjas.com for more videos and updates. How about you girls?
So in other words, everybody, he has run out of excuses. So in 2015, he will actually do something. So that's good. From this end, it's going to be, at Carlos Alcazar 2. I'm going to try to be a little more active on Twitter. I'm not too much of a, I don't make a lot of tweets outside of when we're shooting something. But I'm going to try to do that a little more. But also at the same time, I'm also planning on making some other videos. I've got my own little capture device now. It's so that I can record some gameplay footage. I'm not going to be playing a ton of games on it, but I do want to record some games because there's certain ones that I enjoy, and I'd like to make the odd video about that. Also shooting some other videos for some other movies that I really don't want to talk about long form like this, but that I would still have some thoughts that I'd want to share. So that'll be something that we're looking forward to in 2015. In the meantime, for us, on the next episode of AMS Podcast, the thing we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be doing Angelina Jolie and Morgan Freeman in Wanted, which is actually kind of another cool kind of visual movie. There's some really interesting scenes in it, and it looks a little bit different, and we'll see what we can do see what our thoughts are watching that on the next AMS podcast.
Yep. Don't mind me. I was actually just fixing something on my phone here. In case anyone noticed, at least in this area, Twitter app on Android, iOS stuff, got logged out for no good reason. The site went down yesterday, so I was just fixing that now that I remembered about it. But generally Wanted.
Tweet you.
Yeah, it's hard to read the tweets when the thing's completely logged out, so I was just fixing that.
Indeed. So that'll be the next one that we're going to do on AMS Podcast. Now you know where to contact this man. You know where to contact me. And, I think that we'll keep it at that. That'll be good. I think we're good. Say bye, Many Ninjas.
Take care, everybody. See you later.
Oh, and one more thing, actually. Since we're shooting this on the 29th, and this will be the last one for 2014, have yourselves a Happy New Year. Wherever you celebrate it and whatever time you end up celebrating it, before or after you see this video.
Take care. Happy New Year. And all that fun jazz.